Hello, this is Joe Kwon, the Connection Counselor, and welcome to 5-Star Facilitation, where we put the fun back in facilitation. Now, let's be honest, facilitation is not easy to do. And maybe you've been asked or given the opportunity to give a presentation or to facilitate, and you really want to do a good job. Now, one area that really trips people up is the Q&A, right? What typically happens when it's the end of a presentation and the presenter says, I'd love to take any questions. Does anyone have any questions at all? Let me know your feedback. Would love to hear from the audience. And what typically happens? Right? It's crickets, right? And it just doesn't leave the impression that people are really engaged and that they have really connected with the information that the presenter gave. So you definitely don't want this to happen to you. So what can you do? Are you just reliant on planting questions in the crowd or the kindness of having friends in the audience? There are actually a few simple tips I can share with you to make your Q&A more of a killer Q&A and not a quiet Q&A. So let's think about first the reason why this more often than not happens. You've been presenting, right, for 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. So you've been in broadcast mode and everyone in the audience has been in receive mode. And now all of a sudden you're switching it up and asking them to be in broadcast mode. And that transition can be a little bit difficult, right? Especially if the longer your presentation part goes on, people tend to lose attention or get distracted. It's a normal human being thing. It's not a personal thing. So what you can do to help with that and accommodate for that is to give people a bit of an on-ramp when you do the Q&A. So think about when you're driving and you're getting onto the highway, what do? You turn your turn signal on to let people know that you're coming in, and then you accelerate into the on-ramp so you can get onto the highway. And that allows the people who are on the highway to know that you're coming and either accelerate to get out of your way or slow down to let you in. So how would you do that in the context of a presentation? So instead of just saying, well, does anyone have any questions? You could let people know what's coming, and you could also guide them into different areas that they could ask about. So for instance, you could say, in just a few minutes, I'm going to open it up to question and answers. Some of the topics that I thought were really important that we discussed today were A, B, and C. And I'm especially curious about what people think about X, Y, and Z, or has this happened to you before, right? So the specific language is not important, but you're guiding them and you're also giving them a chance to think about what they might want to say to you. Now, is that a guarantee that all of a sudden people are going to be clamoring to ask you questions? No. Now, are you still stuck? Well, you're in luck. There's a couple additional things you can do. One thing you can do is, especially if you're on a video type call and you see the names of all the participants, and even if you're in a room and there's people in the room, or you can just point at people, you can actually engage a person directly, right? Now, my advice on this is to engage what I like to call a friendly, right? So not a plant, but someone who knows you, someone who trusts you, someone you can take out for coffee or apologize to if they get bent out of shape. I wouldn't ask suddenly like the CEO of the company if you don't have a relationship with them, right? And also give them that same benefit of the on-ramp. So let them know. So you can say, if you have a friend Susie out in the crowd, you can say, so Susie, I'm really curious what you think about this, because I remember once we were having this discussion and you brought up this great point. Do you have any questions, or is there anything you'd like to share with the audience about what you heard today? So in that time, Susie can gather herself. She knows she's going to be expected, and she can sort of prepare her remarks so she can respond in a good way. And what you'll notice is once one person gets talking, the energy starts to shift, right? Remember before you were in broadcast and they were in receive? Now it allows the room to shift into broadcast, and you're the one receiving. But it really takes those first few to get the energy flowing in the right direction. Now, what can inevitably happen when you call on someone specifically, especially in a virtual type environment, there could be technical difficulties, right? So unfortunately, what can happen is you can ruin a really smooth previous part of the presentation by really awful technical difficulties and people being confused and not knowing what to do. So what you can do to prepare for that is anticipate that there's going to be technical difficulties. You know that people are going to have trouble finding their mute button. You know that people are going to have problems with their headsets, right? So just anticipate that. So let's say you ask Edward a question and radio silence, right? You can say, Edward, perhaps you're on mute. Could you check your mute button? We'll give you a few seconds to unmute. And then if he doesn't unmute, you're ready to say, looks like Edward's having some technical difficulties. I'm sure he had an amazing question for us. Edward, just let us know when your technical issues are resolved and we'll take your question then. For now, we'll move on and I'd like to ask Sam a question, and then you do the same preview for Sam. Now, one last tip that I'd like to share, and it works especially well if you're in a smaller group where there's an expectation that everyone should be contributing and sharing, but that expectation isn't always met. One of the problems that happens there is the people who like to talk, someone like me, could end up hogging up all the airtime, and you don't get the diversity, you don't get the inclusion of the other people on the team. Maybe the quieter people, maybe the more introverted people, but who also have great ideas, but they get drowned out by the people who just love the sound of their own voice. So what you can do there, you have a very, very important role as the facilitator, is to create the space for everyone to participate. And the way you do that is by letting everyone know ahead of time. In just a few moments, I'm going to ask for feedback from everyone. We're going to do something a little bit different today. I'd like to randomly call on each person and have you talk for 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, whatever it is, about your experiences and your opinions and your reactions. And keep to that time. And that gives everyone equal airtime, gives everyone a chance. And again, you've provided the on-ramp for them. So the people who normally wouldn't have volunteered to talk, now they understand that there's an expectation and they know they're going to be talking. And the nice thing about this is they know everyone's going to be talking, right? So the center of attention isn't going to be just on them. They're going to have a go, and then someone else is going to have a go. So if you do all these things, if you have the on-ramp, if you let people know what's going on, if you guide them, if you call on people individually, if you prepare for technical difficulties to happen, and if it makes sense, if you try to get participation from everyone, it can turn a quiet Q&A into a killer Q&A. When you've been given the opportunity to facilitate, it's too important to be mediocre when you can be exceptional. My name is Joe Kwon, the Connection Counselor. If you'd like to talk to me about how I can help you prepare for your next facilitation to make sure there's energy, enthusiasm, and great ideas, please contact me at joe@connectioncounselor.com. I'd love to hear from you. My name is Joe Kwon, the Connection Counselor. Remember, you can change your life, one connection at a time. Thank you.